I'm Tabitha Rock.
And I'm Sam Davenport.
Born and bred in Melbourne, we live and breathe property, and we know the Melbourne market like the back of our hand. We've both been buying and selling real estate in Metro Melbourne for over 2 decades combined, and we've learned a few lessons along the way. Okay, we're here with another wonderful episode of Property Culture Podcast, brought to you by Prop Culture, surprisingly. Tabitha and Sam in your ears once again. And this time, got a very serious discussion. If you're thinking of selling, we want to give you a few things to consider at this very critical time, make or break. You're either making money or you're not. You're either stressed or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the easy route or you can take the hard route. And Sam, you're the queen of this because you manage all of our clients' vendor advocacy service, which I think a lot of people don't know that we offer and don't even know it's a thing. But and to be honest, I must admit when I first started doing the buyer advocacy side, being an ex-selling agent, I was like, why the hell? Like I used to hate vendor advocates. They got in the middle of the process when I was a selling agent. They took half my commission. You know, they got me involved because they knew I was the best of the best in the area, but then blocked the communication between myself and the vendor. So I think like I was really anti this vendor advocacy service, but then naturally had a lot of clients come and you had a lot of clients come and say, hey, can you help me sell this? And then just slowly over time, I've seen how much value, comfort, like it provides people in this really stressful time.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I was the same. Like when we were selling agents and we would have vendors, advocates come in and they basically would shepherd us from our client, from our mutual client, but from our client. So we couldn't have any of the real conversations we needed to have with them directly. It had to go through this third party.
Gets lost in translation.
And when we were doing vendor advocacy with the advocates who we would also see on the buying side oftentimes, there was a little bit of a different flavour to that. But remember there's companies who do vendor advocacy only.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt, were the most annoying people to work with because they had to prove their value and their worth to their client in a way that was at a detriment to the process.
Oh, yeah.
They were too focused on proving to their client their value rather than actually helping the process. And I think I am the same. I'm the same as you. I'm the same as every other selling agent in that it felt like it was a useless role to play. However, through this last 6.5 something years of prop culture, we have just seen time and time again, vendor advocacy has a time and place. And it's not for everyone. I don't need a vendor's advocate if I'm selling my place. I know what I'm doing. It doesn't stress me out. I'm okay. I can make the decisions. I'm physically here. I can physically be there. I can do all of that. That's not a problem. I don't need someone. But there's many cases in which someone benefits from having someone on the ground acting on behalf of them as the vendor.
And I think it's really to help them consider all these different things we're going to go through in this podcast, in this episode. But like you've just got someone there at all times and you don't need to think about anything.
Well, I always say to people, I'm like, look, I'm not signing documents for you. Like you are still going to need to be contactable through this process to sign off on decisions, sign off on quotes, pay invoices and sign contracts. Outside of that, I'm there for you doing it on your behalf. And I'm dealing with the agents, I'm dealing with the cleaner, I'm dealing with the photographer. We're dealing with everyone on your behalf and obviously dealing with the campaign itself.
Yeah, I think 2 critical factors if you are thinking about using a vendor's advocate is that one, they have been an ex-selling agent. I think that is really crucial. So they do know the conversations the agents might have. They do know the process of selling property. And the other one is that they've personally sold because I think understanding it from a stress perspective, I mean, you've sold, I've sold, we've sold different ways in different phases of our lives with children, with pets, without, vacant, no, off market, on market. And so understanding from an emotional point of view, the toll that takes, I think it's so
100%.
critical.
And because that is one of the biggest factors that we find particularly with owner occupiers. And when we get involved with a vendor advocacy with an owner occupier, so someone who's living in the house, oftentimes has been there for a very long time, and the general process is overwhelming to them. So they need or want someone there with them to help support them through the process and advise, but largely to support. And then on the flip side of that, you've got vacant investors who just aren't even oftentimes physically here. So we deal with a lot of sales where the vendor is overseas, they're doing FIFO work, they're just not physically there. So that's where they need a vendor's advocate, is by having someone on the ground, having someone physically there advising them from the ground up. So there's so many different ways in which we can add value to a client from a vendor advocacy perspective. It just is so dependent on the circumstances.
Yeah, well, we're going to go through a few good questions to ask agents when you're interviewing them. But I actually had a client recently using a different vendor's advocate who she wasn't too sure whether they were across the area. And I said, oh, well, that's, sometimes we do vendor advocacy down the coast.
Yeah.
So we're not, or in the country, we're not 100% in that market all the time. But we know the critical questions to ask, which is, days on market. How long should we expect to be sitting on the market for? Okay, first open, how many buyers are we expecting to get through what does a good campaign look like? Is that 3 second inspections in the first 2 weeks, or is that actually none? And this is like, if we get a second inspection in the first month because, we're in regional Victoria or something, we're going well. So just having that baseline. And I think we love agents, don't get me wrong, but they do forget, because they do it every day, that people don't know the baseline or the metrics to measure what a successful campaign looks like. They're like, oh, hey, 10 groups through, no contract requests.
Exactly.
Cool. So we on track or we're not? So we'll get into those questions to ask an agent when you're interviewing them. We won't get into what questions to ask as the campaign goes on. But I think let's kick off by saying, don't go with the agent that sold you the property necessarily. I mean, you're on their database. You'll be getting the anniversary calls. That means they're a good agent. They work their database well done. But, if they were a great selling agent 10 years ago, it doesn't necessarily mean they're the right person to sell that home today.
Exactly.
So I think just do your research. And there's so many platforms out there that you can do it from the comfort of your couch.
Yeah.
But I just gave because we're sometimes reluctant to do vendor advocacies on sub $1 million property or apartments, just because we want to make sure that there's enough commission in there to incentivize agents, etc.
Without making our client overpay commission. Yeah,
exactly. And you've got to be very careful of that. Then a few vendor advocates, getting you to pay 2.5% or 3% on apartments. So, it makes it that they can get their commission and the agent can get their commission.
I mean, I think just to close off on the concept of getting the agent in who sold you the property, every single time I meet with a potential client, who like a vendor advocacy client, they say to me, oh, well, I've met with so-and-so who sold me the property.
Yes.
I get it. If that agent is still highly active and successful in the area, they're probably going to be on the list of agents we're going to get in anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just to get just that one agent to come in, just based on history or relationship, is not enough of a reason to use them to sell the property. They need to go through the process.
The key advice that I actually gave someone recently that was selling an apartment and they had already started interviewing a few agents, I said, just go and shop them at their open for inspection, see if you get a call back. Maybe go with your partner, give the partner's name so they don't sort of put 2 and 2 together that's the vendor that I'm trying to prospect at the moment.
Yes.
And just see if you get a call back. See if they know about the place that they're selling, the body corporate fees, where the car park is.
Oh my gosh.
Are they across it? Because I think one key selling point of a lot of agents is, I sell the most amount of properties, in this area under $1 million. Cool, but do you sell them well? Do you know the information? Are you across it, or are you just transactional and you're sort of everyone's on the conveyor belt?
Exactly right. And in shopping them around and in sort of working out who you do want to interview, just get between 2 and 3 agents to come in.
Oh.
If you get more than 3, you're wasting a lot of people's time, including your own. But it's unnecessary. We've got enough sales data, generally speaking, depending on the property type and area, we've got enough sales data to support valuation or suspected value of a property. Two opinions is great. A third is the measurer. You're sort of working out if you've got one who says to you it's worth 1.5 and one who says it's 1.9, maybe the third person confirms 1.6. And so now, okay, we're going to move ahead with this sort of concept of the value of the property. So 2 to 3 agents in to come in and submit for the business, value the property and submit for the business, meaning that they'll have a look at the house, obviously, meet with you, tell you about how amazing they are, and they will take 60 minutes of your time.
Apart from one agent.
Yeah.
Who books you in like 25-minute time slots.
I love that agent though. But it's funny because when we meet with them, we're in and out in 15 minutes because we just eliminate the fluff and the why we're so good because we already know. And I always say to them when they come in, look, you're here for a reason. I respect you as an agent. I believe you're a great person or great option for the job. That's why you're here. Don't worry about selling me on it. Like I know, I'm already aware of what you do. So we just get them in and then after they've come in, they'll give you obviously their valuation and a submission and that's going to include suggested advertising campaigns and marketing schedules, commission fee structures obviously, and whether or not they think you should go down the auction path, private sale, expressions of interest, all of that. So you're going to have 3 opinions of local agents in front of you, which once again, having a vendor's advocate, like that is a lot of information and it's critical who you choose.
They're good salespeople. You'll have a lot of sales lines spun at you.
And some of them are just so bloody kind and nice and you get so drawn in and you're like, they're so lovely.
Yeah.
And yeah, they are. And they are. They're all good people. But who's going to get the last 10 grand out of the buyer for you?
And that's what we know because we do the buyer advocacy as well. We've got that critical information, seeing them on the buyer side. Like, who do we not want to buy off? That's probably who we're going to sell through.
Oh, 100%. I always say to people, I'm like, the agents who I love to buy through are not the agents I used to sell. Not necessarily.
Yeah, we're generalising here, people.
Not necessarily the agents,
that's a great key takeaway. Number 2, max 2 to 3 agents. Don't get in 6. Analysis paralysis. You'll be having sales scripts coming out your ears and it's just unnecessary. Rate My Agent, one great place to go straight to get those 2 key agents. And that takes us to the third point is make sure you know who's actually opening up the property because the person on the door makes a massive difference. So you're sitting here interviewing the top agent, might be a partner of the firm, director of the firm, or just a normal sales agent. Make sure that are they the ones opening it up on a Thursday and a Saturday? Or do they have a PA? Do they have a team? Do they work in pods? What does that look like? Who's doing the callbacks?
Yeah.
Because if you're sitting here interviewing one person and you love them and think they're great and they've got all the scripts and dialogues, but they're actually not the ones that are going to do anything on your property.
Yeah, exactly.
Counterproductive.
And that goes back into the point about shopping, what is it called? Secret shopping? What's it called when you do that? Mystery shopping. That's when that goes back into the concept of mystery shopping the agent you're planning to choose because it is normal and natural, and I expect top selling agents to have a team behind them. They physically can't go to 15 properties every single Saturday. It's not physically possible. So they need to have a team behind them to help supporting them in selling the volume that they sell. That's fine. I'm cool with that. So in mystery shopping these teams, you can find out who has the most experience of these junior agents and who has the skill set that you're comfortable with. Maybe they are left on the door by themselves, 1 or 2 opens, during your campaign. Are you comfortable with that person? Because there are some young agents out there.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm like, when I meet them, I'm like, I always make a point to tell them, I'm like, you're going to be great.
Oh,
you're going to be great.
I just bought off someone, a berry plant agent, and I just made a point to say your PA is really good.
I always give the feedback to the lead agent.
She is across all the information on the property. She's not standing there like a stunned mullet.
Yeah.
She's responsive. Like, you've got a good team here, and she is one of the reasons you're able to do what you do. So I hope you know that.
Totally.
And make sure she's like appropriately rewarded for that.
Exactly. And particularly as well, like when you know, we know straight away. Are they brand new? Or do they have 1 year experience, or do they have 3? Like, it's obvious to us, which is fine. But you can still be a really high-performing, brand new real estate agent. You can absolutely be. You just don't have the experience behind you, which is fine. But it's the way in which they manage the open, the way in which they answer questions, or let people know they don't know the answer. They'll come back to them instead of coming up with a reason. Sorry. But, yeah, so working out whether or not you're comfortable with the team, if they will be working in a team, particularly if you are selling a lower value property, you probably can't expect one of the top selling agents to be at every single open for inspection. It's just not how they operate. So working out whether you're comfortable with the team, great option.
That's number 3. Number 4, and this is a bit of a just deviation, but I think people really underestimate the value of just giving your property a coat of paint before you sell. It is the best money you're going to spend if that's all you do. If you're living in it, if it's vacant, if it's tenanted. I mean, I have seen properties tenanted and still painted. Do it.
Yeah.
Like, what you think is not cream paint is cream paint.
Yeah.
We need it white. We need it crisp. It feels fresh, and you're going to see the return on investment 100%.
Exactly. It's that general concept of getting the pre-sale works done right, and the paint is the baseline. It's the paint, the wash down on the outside, the garden beds, the steam cleaning the carpet if you can't replace it, all of those things. It's sort of, but the paint is the baseline for all of these things to build beyond. If you do all of those other things but you don't paint, that's really noticeable. Whereas if you paint but don't do anything else, you're probably going to get away with a little bit more. But it costs money to sell property. Don't try and save money in the process. You will reap the rewards if you prep it properly.
100%. Because buyers buy with their eyes and their hearts.
And their heart.
I actually.
Not their mind.
Not their mind. The mind doesn't come in unless we're involved.
Yeah, and exactly. Then we keep you in the mind. Yeah.
But Sam, I mean, you would have 3 great questions for people to be equipped with. They've got their real estate agent sitting in front of them, singing them sweet nothings about how fabulous they are.
Yeah.
What are 3 questions you would recommend for the average buyer average seller to sort of be equipped with, and that they can ask that agent?
One of the things I love to ask the agent to come to the meeting prepared with is some little brochures of recently sold comparable property.
That they've done?
That they've done, that they've sold. So they should have the brochure sitting in their office, in their little file of sold property. And I want them to just come and just show us. It doesn't have to be extensive. It's okay if you have only sold 5 this year that are comparable. That's actually a great number. Like, I would expect to see. If you've got more than that, then they're the one. But I just ask them to come prepared to the meeting with those, just to sit and just show we've got this covered. This is what we do. This is our bread and butter. I just want them to prove to the vendor. I obviously usually know that.
Yeah.
But I just want them to show the vendor, like, this is what we do. We've got you covered. We've got you handled. So that is one of the first things I would ask them to come with, which anyone can do. Just tell them, can you come prepared with a couple of properties you've recently sold that are comparable to mine? Okay, they say. And if they come with nothing, thank you so much for coming. You're going to price check for me. Great. But they're not going to be the one.
Yeah.
When they're there with you, definitely, like we've just said, asking them to clarify exactly who's going to be working on what. So once again, we assume, and we know real estate agents, very generally speaking, there are certainly agents who do it all, but there's agents generally work in a team. So naming who is working on the marketing. They'll name the person in their office. Great. That's what she does full-time, or he does full-time.
Yeah.
Naming who is going to be standing at the open for inspections. If, depending on the property size and type, we want minimum of 2. If it's a small property, of course, one is enough. If you've
But
got
if it's an apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if you've got a big apartment block, you want someone down on the street directing buyers through, because how many times have you gone to an open and you're like, where am I going?
Totally. Oh, or I want to see the car park or the pool
Exactly.
and like no one's there to show you.
100%.
Or come back for a private inspection during the week. Well, that's not convenient.
And that's where I think a lot of the top agents have oftentimes an overkill of people there, but it is good from that perspective. I mean, if you want to see, can you open the garage so I can see the laneway? Sure, but you still need someone on the front door.
Mm-hmm.
So having multiple agents there, but just getting them to name who will be at every open for inspection, who will be doing the buyer callbacks, critical information. If it is someone who has 1 year experience, I'm sorry, but they, in my mind, generally speaking, unless they're like, Einsteins, they don't have the experience in which to answer all of the different array of questions you can get from these buyers. So working out who's doing the buyer callback and confirming someone if you do want someone in particular. And the third and final thing is going to be ask them when they're giving you their thoughts on the price of the property. So let's say they say to you, look, I think you could probably get around 2.5 mil for it. Okay, great. What would you like to see it quoted in order to get that result? And the reason why you want to ask that is because you don't want to be bamboozled by the response once you've already signed on with them.
Yeah.
So if they, for example, might say to you, oh, we want to straddle the 2 mark, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
How are we going to get to 2.5?
Yeah.
And then the reason why you ask that question is because then you can say to them, can you give me some recently sold property examples of the result and the quote range?
Yeah.
So in that, what you will find out is if you are already being told a dream price and they're going to start to try and condition you down to where they want to quote the property, or if really they do get this big disparity. Yeah. So those are the 3 questions I love to ask.
Wonderful. And I think also key thing there, don't say the price you want. Like, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor or Ms. Vendor or Ms. Vendor. What are you hoping? Have you seen anything sold recently that you think's comparable? Oh, yeah, I saw 20 Smith Street. I thought that was actually pretty similar to us.
Yeah.
Suddenly the agent's clocked,
They
that
know
sold
exactly.
for $3 million. That's what you're aiming for. And the agent only thinks it's 2.5. So then slowly they're going to start working their figures up.
Exactly. Look, you could get a 3. It could be 2. You could get a 3. Could be 2.5. Could get a 3. And so then you walk away going, they said 3.
Yes. Oh, my God, totally. I had a family friend actually sell their property and they were halfway through the campaign and they're like, oh, this is not going well, which is often when we get the call. We need the call before you start interviewing agents. Oh, it's not going well. Like they're asking us to reduce the price. And I said, okay, well, what did they say it was worth at the start? Like when they were sitting in your home before you'd sign the authority. Oh, well, they didn't really give us a number. You know how they work. But I said, we've put renos into it. We bought it for $1 million. So obviously we want 1.3. Okay. So, but what did the agent say? And they had no idea. And so that's really critical. Get the Sharpie and write down the number the agent tells you.
Exactly.
I think one property that stands out for me that you recently helped sell was one down at the coast in Torquay.
Yes.
Because I think, oftentimes I say to people, as I've just mentioned, that when you've engaged an agent, it's really hard for us to get involved. But we had a bit of an SOS call from this client.
Yeah.
It had been on the market for several months and they were actually listed with a pretty good agent, I think. I mean, you tell us the story of what happened there and how you sort of pivoted and changed the course.
Yes. So, absolute SOS call from a client not a client. So he, was referred into us anyway. He had his property on the market in Torquay with a reputable agent. And he was not getting anyone through the open for inspections. And he, needed help. He wanted help.
And it was originally hire furniture, but then that had lapsed the 6 week that they give you.
Exactly. So it was now empty.
Right.
Yeah. And because he was, as far as I knew at the time, signed on with a real estate agent, I just gave him a little bit of general advice around the price and around what it looked like online.
Yeah.
And around, other things. I mean, don't call me out of the blue because I'll tell you exactly what's going on and exactly how to help yourself. But I did. I had a meeting with him and I just helped him in the best way I could without getting involved properly.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I said to him, have a look at your authority period with the real estate agent, with the selling agent. It had been months. I think it had been 6 months on the market.
Yeah.
So I
definitely
sort of
out of
knew
authority.
it was out of authority. Exactly. So I said to him, check your authority period and just let me know. And we'll just go from there. So he checked his authority period and lo and behold, he was well out of authority period, like months out, which is an indicator as well that the real estate agent who was selling it had forgotten about it, had dropped the ball on it, had just put it to the side. It's now stale in their mind, in their office. It's an old listing, can't be sold, can't move it, overpriced, whatever. So what we did is I said to my client, he signed on with us, and I said to him, we have two options. So we can either engage a brand new real estate agent to sell the property. New marketing cost, right?
Yes.
Here we go. New marketing cost, new photos, new everything, probably new furniture, all of these things. Or we can re-sign with this current agent, which means that you're able to save what would have been about a $5,000 cost. Which is
higher furniture.
Yeah, all of that. And so we ended up deciding to do that because I researched within the real estate agency, and the agent that they had chosen to go with to sell the property was the director of the business. He was away. He was overseas. It was during
come
winter.
Back to all what we've touched on in this episode.
He wasn't there. And the second listing agent online was like a friend of theirs through mutual friends, whatever. He had very little experience in the industry. To my view, wasn't the right person for the job, particularly to sell in the market that it was in, which was that they were one of 50 houses on the market between 1.3 and 1.5. in Torquay, like mental volume. And it's the market down there. I mean, it's crazy. In some pockets of Greater Melbourne, it's not easy to sell. Anyway, so within that business, I found who I felt was going to be the right person for the job.
Critical that this is a thing. It's not the brand, it's the agent. And it's the agent standing at the front door and making the callbacks.
Exactly.
Can't reiterate that enough.
So I called the director of the company and I said, look, this is what's happened. This is what I'm planning to do. And he knew he dropped the ball. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, that all sounds good. So I called this agent who I decided to give the listing to, and I said to her, look, I'm going to give you 4 weeks to sell the property. I'm also, in conjunction with the 4 weeks, I'm going to give you a huge price reduction, which was they were overpriced, So I explained to my client, I said, look at all of these sales, look at all of this data. This is where it needs to sit. This is what's going to help you get it sold. Their absolute purpose was to sell the property. Obviously, we talked all about the options of holding it and selling another time, selling in summer, for example, because this was during winter. Selling next year, whatever it was going to be, once we get rid of all of this stock that's on the market. They wanted to sell. They needed to sell. That was their preference.
And I think you forget to mention they've moved interstate by this stage. And you head down to the property and the grass is overgrown. And,
oh, my God, it's dirty. There's dusty everywhere. So they're holding open for inspections in this filthy, empty property.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get it all cleaned up. We get it all looking good. We get this new agent on the door. She's got 4 weeks to sell. She's got a new price. Here she goes.
Yeah, energy, revival.
Revival. We remove half of the 40 photos they had of it online. I said, no,
overkill.
Get rid of
Max
what
10.
The hell? Max 10.
I don't need a photo of the bloody oven.
Oh, it was just, and also their lead photo was shocking. I was like, nah, we just rejigged the whole thing online. And anyway, I was on that poor agent's back every day of the week.
Great.
But we got it sold.
3 weeks, wasn't it?
3 weeks.
Amazing.
3 weeks we got sold. And it just needed, the push. And you can, it's easy to be sort of left to go stale.
Oh, yeah.
But, if it's being managed properly, everything is sellable.
Yeah. 100%. Okie dokie. It takes us to that time.
Our favorite time. Marry, kill. We should come up with a little tune. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I was just thinking about that as our hideous voices. No, you're actually a pretty good singer. Okay.
I was on Australian Idol.
Get out. Were you actually?
Well, I did the tryouts. This is
like City Views and there's like glimmers from the
Glimmer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was on Australian Idol. I was in front of Marsha Hines. Let's just take it there.
Good.
That's through like 5 bloody auditions.
Oh my God. Okay, you can have that one. Okay, I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
If marry kill, are we going, if you're the vendor and selling, what would your ideal strategy be? Private sale, expressions of interest, or an auction?
I love the simple question, which has a very difficult answer because it's completely dependent on which market I own a property in, what is it worth, what do things usually sell for, et cetera, et cetera. In Melbourne, if it's a house, if it's a freestanding house, and I know I'm going to have multiple interested parties, auction. If it's an unusual property and I think I might have someone who's above anyone else, expressions of interest. And if I just have a run-of-the-mill standard property that's pretty simply valued, like an apartment, for example, private sale.
Love it.
Yeah.
That is so clear. That's exactly what I'd do. Loved this episode, Sam.
Me
so
too.
many takeaways. So if you're thinking of selling and you're silly enough not to call us, there's some hot tips.
Guys,
and also we don't
silly.
charge it.
Oh yeah, we never even said.
So that's the beauty of this service. We just take a small referral fee from whichever agent is selected. There's no biases. Whatever. Anyway, see you next time.
Bye.